Now, of course, when you do want to go into a game as well for beginners, a mistake I see people is going into a game alone. The game will start, by yourself if you are in there. Like if you just, click create. So let's say click create. Sometimes, it will go in. So ideally, what you want to do is you want to join other people because it is much more fun that way. So you can see they are teleporting off. That's just a, solo queue. But ideally, wait to see if there are other people loading up. And then, ideally what you want to do is maybe create like a party size of 4 or 5, depending on how much people are in the lobby. So here I can see that there are maybe 3 people. So if I want to start a game, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click 3, and I'm going to wait for see if, people join me. But of course you can play this game solo by yourself, but it is 10 times more fun with other people in there. So if you just, want to play this with your friends, which most Roblox games are, of course, like I said, just set the party size, and then you can see we got 1 person here. We only need 1 more person to join us. It's completely up to you on how, quickly you want to get into a game. And remember, when aiming, if you are struggling to hit headshots in first person, if you are just going there, it's going to be way, way easier. And I would also say in the beginning, if you are using a crossbow, this is probably the only time that you can use a crossbow. So not a crossbow, a crowbar. So this is going to be the only time where a crowbar is going to be super, super useful. And like I said, I wouldn't, focus on melee weapons at all, because melee weapons just put you in danger. The best thing to focus on is, of course, just making sure you use whatever weapon you use at distance. That way you're not going to be taking as much damage. Also, another mistake that you can make as a beginner, don't upgrade the fire and explosives if you don't have any explosive weapons. Every time there's going to be an option what you want to upgrade. When I first started out, I upgraded the fire and explosives, but I didn't realize that when you start out the game, you don't actually have any fires and explosives. So the best thing that you can do is upgrade your gun damage and your movement speed, okay? So for me, that was the most useful when trialing this out. Now, if you are going to melee in this game, it's best to melee in and then move backwards. Otherwise, you risk getting struck by zombies when they are there. So it's always best to melee in, move back, then melee again, because the problem with your melee is that it has a very short swing. Of course, you can upgrade your swing, but I wouldn't advise that simply because in the later rounds, certain bosses are just so, crazy in the amount of damage that they do. So for me, what I would say the best thing that you can do is just make sure that you swing in and then swing out. And that's going to give you like a much easier time at this. So you can see when you don't swing in and swing out, you basically get hit. And it's super, super frustrating. The best thing to upgrade from the beginning is always going to be your gun damage, because these zombies do get, pretty dangerous at the later rounds, and you want to make sure that you have as much damage as possible. Now you can see those ones that blow up, you want to make sure that you don't go anywhere near the fire, or your health will go down quite a ton. I'm going to show you guys if I go in the fire right now, that actually does affect my health quite a bit. So you can see I'm on fire right now. And yeah, it's not, ideally what you want. Of course, some people in the game will want to play in a way that is like a ninja. So you might want to have a ninja sword or whatever, but it's completely up to you with what you want to do. And if you want to do that, of course, upgrade your swing speed, because that's going to be, one of the most useful things that you can do. Now, another thing that you'll see is that tanks are coming. Usually this will be like big creatures. Okay. And these ones are, not that crazy. They're not as crazy as the boss, but usually if you want to defeat these tanks, it's best to just have some kind of shotgun, because shotguns are the ones that deal the most damage in the shortest amount of time. So I would say never sleep on the shotguns in this game, because they are super, super useful. Also, make sure you avoid the red guys in this game, because the red guys are the ones that explode and deal a lot of fire, and they make it really, really hard for you to, get further ahead. So if you see any red zombies, make sure you shoot them as quickly as possible, because they are super, super frustrating. Now, necromancers are the, pretty dangerous ones. In the other rounds, they get super, super dangerous because they spit a lot, as well as just having some weird kind of powers. So avoid them at possible, but always have a shotgun ready and you'll be able to deal with them, just like me and my teammate did just there. So, if you don't, you're going to be in a very, very bad situation. When the screen shakes, it usually means that there is a big, big tank coming. So it always, is important to be careful. And this usually happens at every 10 rounds. So if you have, round 20 to round 30 or round 40 or whatever, every round that ends in a 0 is going to have one of these big guys. And yeah, they are super, super slow, which is pretty funny. So, you're going to be fine as long as, you're completely fine. And every 5 rounds, you do get one of these big upgrades. And these big upgrades basically allow you to upgrade your gun in a way that, is super, super useful. So for me, I'm probably going to go with +5 fire rate on this one. Now, the grenade launcher, you can see, is not that great because it deals damage, that burst damage. But the burst damage, unless you've been upgrading it for a long while, the problem with it is that it's just simply not that great. And I know that might, be surprising. But yeah, the shotgun is way better. You can see the shotgun instantly kills them all. But the grenade launcher, the problem with it is that it causes a lot of chaos and it's not that great in terms of being able to deal as much damage as it should. So you can see it is kind of useful if you're bad at aiming, but I think that you can't use it that much close range. So you do have to be a bit careful with, you know, what upgrades you do get. And the problem with the grenade launcher also is that it does take a lot of ammunition. So you do have to be like super spammy with it, which means you're going to run out of ammo pretty quickly. Another thing is that with shotguns, you always want to be as close range as possible. So don't, you know, make sure that your shotguns are from a distance, because if you are, they're just going to not deal as effective as they are. So you can see right here, these shotguns, you know, they're dealing damage, but it's not as much as it could be. But when I go right up close, I'm able to get a complete one shot on them, which is, you know, a lot different. Like if you can see over the map right here, like I'm just dealing no damage. So always make sure you go as close as possible, without, of course, taking damage when you're using shotguns. Now, something weird in this game that you can do if you do have a plasma weapon or something, what's weird is that you can actually charge them up. I don't know why you can do this. What's the point of this? Genuinely, I think it's, you know, kind of pointless, but you can charge them up. So I'm going to show you guys what I mean by this in a second. So another thing that you may not know about plasma rifles is that you can actually charge them up. So you can see right here that plasma rifles, I can shoot. But what you can do is you can charge them up so that they deal extra damage. So for example, you can see I deal 667 damage right here. But if I hold this and I charge it up and then I decide to let off a round, that should deal around 2000 damage. So if I go here, boom, you just see that one did around 6000 damage. So it's completely optional on how much damage you want to deal with your plasma rifles. The plasma rifles are usually useful for high rounds situations where, you know, you have those big bosses and you just need to deal a large amount of damage. So like here, you can see that one dealt around 3000 damage, but it still isn't as useful as the pump shotgun. So, I mean, it's fun, but it isn't as useful. So you can see right here, boom. The shotguns in this game are probably some of the most effective weapons. You can see that the auto shotgun, which has a very rare chance of happening, is probably one of the best things that you can get in the game. Currently, I use the pump shotgun because the pump shotgun is just as effective, except you have to pump it at the, you know, time. So I would say if you do have a choice of any weapon, don't forget to use the pump shotgun, because the pump shotgun is just, you know, a one-shot hero, and it's going to save you in a lot of scenarios where you might otherwise be dead, because it usually just insta one-shots them, which is, you know, super useful in those situations where you might be dying. So that's why we're using that. Another tip on aiming is that aiming in this game is super weird. So you might find that some shots don't land. So what you need to be able to do is you need to be able to angle your shots as if they were actually coming out of the gun. So even if I shoot at the ground, it's not going to shoot at the ground here. So I will have to like move away and angle my gun so that my shots actually hit. So you can see basically you want to have your aim to the right of you or to the left of you, okay? Well, usually to the right of you, because if it's not to the right of you, then your shots won't hit. And that is something that is, you know, frequently annoying. So always make sure you move back, you get enough space. And then essentially when you do get enough space, you make sure that you basically angle yourself so that the, you know, target is at least, you know, a few steps in front of you. And of course is at least to the right of you. Otherwise, if your target's like this, you know, you're probably going to miss. So if you're like doing that, you're probably going to miss. So just make sure that, you know, you have that. Another effective tactic that is in the game is usually at the higher levels, you just want to make sure you shoot them before they come out. And the reason you want to do that is because oftentimes these guys, you know, sometimes they usually move pretty slow, but sometimes you do get some fast moving ones and you don't really want to be there when they're moving super fast. You ideally want to make sure that you shoot them before they come. So as soon as you see any, you know, instance of green, sometimes you just want to be able to shoot off into the distance. So you can see right here, this teammate is just using a melee weapon and they are just, you know, firing off into the distance where they know they will be. Now, also another thing that you want to make sure you do in this game is to stay away from the green bits, because if you don't, you will die. And these green things are super weird in the sense that it's basically acid. So if you see any green, just remember that that is acid and you need to get out of the way. So it might look like just part of the Roblox environment, but it isn't. It is just acid that will kill you. And I know that is kind of annoying because it doesn't have any like burn feature, but you want to make sure that you get straight away from that acid as soon as you can. So I'm going to show you guys what happens when you step on the acid. You can see right here, I look at my health bar go down. So you can see as soon as I stand on the acid, you can see it says it pops up with the red and you can see my health is actually going down. Now, another thing that I would say is to probably avoid melee weapons in this game altogether entirely, because the problem with melee weapons is that you don't have any distance between you and the enemy. So something that I noticed when I was playing this game is that my teammate here, he would constantly get low health because he was constantly having to melee the enemy. And when you melee the enemy, you have to go really close to them. And when you have to go close to them, you are at risk of course, dying from them. So it's, of course, something that you want to avoid as much as possible. So I would say, you know, avoid that as well. Another thing is that when you see bosses, you don't want to focus on the boss. You always want to make sure that you focus on the small guys first, because the small guys are actually faster than the big guys. The big guys are slow and they're usually, never going to be near you. So you usually just focus on the small guys, because the small guys are going to be the ones that like come over to you and actually hit you. So make sure that you go over to the small guys first when you're dealing with a level boss 40, a level boss 30, because it's really, really easy to, focus the boss. But if you focus the boss, you're probably going to die. Now, another thing as well that most people don't realize in this game is that you can actually headshot. So when you see a red thing on your screen, that just basically means that you've gotten a headshot. And that is going to basically be how you get a lot more damage in those later rounds. So always make sure, once again, if you are using a shotgun or an assault rifle, you aim towards the head, because it's going to deal double the damage, which is super, super useful. So right there, you can see red, it's red, it's red. And once it's red, you'll be able to see exactly on your screen and you'll know that you're getting the headshot. So headshots deal double damage, which is super, super useful. So make sure that you, aim towards the head, because if you do, you're going to get so much more damage and you're going to be able to live a lot longer, because you deal twice as damage and you don't need to be able to, go as close to them as possible. So it's super useful as well. Now, another thing that you need to make sure you're doing is, of course, making sure you're upgrading the right things. For me, as a beginner, I would say to upgrade your damage the first, because for the first couple of rounds, the, waves, they're never that fast. So you want to make sure that you just upgrade your damage. Don't upgrade your speed at all. It's not strategic at all. These mobs are super, super slow in the initial first rounds. So just keep upgrading your weapon damage, because that is the only thing that is super, super useful to you. Everything else is just, I guess you could say just a minor thing that you don't need to worry about. Now, the best tactic as well for smaller rounds as well is to be able to just make sure that one person is watching one window and the other person is watching the other. I do believe that you're able to have up to 5 people, but usually, some people just run around and do mess around and stuff like that. But just make sure that you have one person watching one window and one person watching another. So for example, in this game, when it was me and another person playing, I realized that sometimes it was just 2 people or one person watching the thing. And it should have been, one person watching one area while another person's watching another area. So it's always important to, ensure your back is covered, because if it's not, you're going to be in a super, super bad position. So make sure that, as well, you are, running around as well, because if you're not running around, you're going to be in a serious, serious trouble. Also, if you get piercing, this is super, super good at the high waves, because even if you're dealing damage to one person, it does deal damage to the person behind. So it becomes super, super beneficial to be able to have high piercing as well. I know it's a quite underrated thing, but it is super, super useful to use. Now, the hardest things to get hit in this game are the really small ones, and that's because the aiming in this game is super, super weird. So if you are wondering what the hardest thing to do is, it's not to hit the big targets, because the big targets are super, super, in the way, and they're always there. But another thing you can do if you are struggling with aiming in this game as well is to just go first person. If you go first person, it becomes remarkably easier to just hit everyone, and it's super, super easy to get those, headshots. As you can see, for me, this is where I found it to be, as easy as possible. So switching to first person is something that is, remarkably more effective, because it allows you to just gain much easier. So yeah, one thing to never upgrade is your melee. So you can see that in first person, this, usually helps with the aiming. And aiming is really, really hard in this game just because of how the weapons are. So make sure that, if you're playing this game, you are in first person, because that's how you're going to be able to get the headshots. That's how you're going to be able to get more damage. And this just basically gives you a lot better chance at actually winning. So for me, the best thing that you want to do when you're starting out is, of course, to switch out your weapons. So you can see right here that, of course, I do have the pistol. And, because my trigger finger is pretty fast, it is super useful. But the bad thing with the crowbar is that while, yes, it does deal a large amount of damage, the problem is that it's very slow. And the problem with the crowbar as well is that you have to be right near the enemy. So ideally what you want to do is swap this out as soon as possible once you start to gain a little bit of traction. So once you get your first mystery box, you want to be able to swap this out. And so I can always just take that. And then basically you want to swap that out for your crowbar. Now you might be thinking, what if I run out of ammo? Trust me, guys, you won't run out of ammo in this game. There is always a max ammo nearby. So you'll be super, super fine. And if you are worried about that, just make sure that you do have at least one melee weapon, but just make sure you continually increase your clip size and of course your ammunition size. So now another thing you can have is, of course, once you're done with your game and you go to certain levels and you get certain crates, you can then of course use these to unlock crates. So if you go to the crates, you can see I'm able to unlock these different ones because I have, different keys. So for the rusty crate, I'm just going to unlock this, and usually this is not that great. It's just a terrible item. And so when you have your crates, you can open them right here. You can see we've got 3 different crates. So we've got the rusty crate, the wooden crate. So the rusty crate is open. you can see it's going to give me something here, a rusty wrench. And so this gets added to my loot. And then of course, when you do have the different crates that, you have, basically placed down, they do have timers on them. So you will have to wait in game. So it's best to probably just go into another game. But these are things that you can do. So then you go into your loot and then you can see what you have. So you can claim this, and whatever you get in your loot, you can claim this back for this currency. Now, this currency is super useful because this is how you buy weapons and how you get to higher rounds. So if you just died and you're wondering what on earth just happened, how did I die and that? So ideally want to make sure that, you're opening your pristine crates or whatever crates you do have. After you get your crates or whatever, make sure that, you do have to wait. For the pristine crates, you can see it does take a really long time to go. But of course, if you do want to, skip the timers, it is going to cost you some Robux. But I'm going to just do that for this video. So I'm going to go ahead and just buy this. So you can see I just managed to skip the queue here. So let's actually see what this was able to give me. It gave me a toaster. Now, once again, I go into the loot and then I'm just going to go to the loot and then I'm going to claim this. And then you can see it gives me a virtual currency. So it's completely up to you what you want to do in terms of, waiting or not. I don't think it's that crazy to wait because, if you play the game all the time, you might want to spend a few Robux to be able to open up these different things. So for me, I think opening these up and just bypassing the timer, I mean, it's a very, very small amount of Robux as well. So it's not like it's a super, super crazy amount. So it's pretty worth it, especially if you do want better weapons. And so anytime we have these items, we just redeem them for the currency. Of course, you can click the show off button to show off to your friends if you, do want to. So you only do have 3 crate slots as well. You can see right here, there's only 3 slots. So if you do want to have more, you're probably gonna have to pay more. So it's important to know that as well. So now once you do have those bolts, you basically just want to click Z. And then this is where you can see what weapons you do have. So you can see all of these weapons, if you want to upgrade them. And when you upgrade them, it basically gives them a lot more different statistics. So for example, let's say the pump shotgun is really good. I can upgrade this. You can see pump shotgun is now probably going to have a lot more better statistics, which is really good. And so this is your progression system. So it's completely up to you whether you want to upgrade the weapons that you do have or you want to, buy different weapons. So click the top left and then you can go to the weapon shop. It will teleport you there instantly. So now I'm at the weapon shop. So if I press E, you can see that now this is where I can buy different guns. So you can see right here, these are the weapons that are owned. And then if I go up to the top, these are the weapons that are unowned. So there's many different guns there that are super, super cool and super, super useful. I already said that the best guns you can already own are the pump shotgun. So definitely upgrade to that. And of course the minigun because it's super, super useful. Now, the best thing to probably buy, like your first buy, is probably going to be an epic weapon if possible. Although all of the different weapons are super, super useful. I just think that probably one of the, easiest buys that you can make is of course either an auto shotgun, which is super, super useful because shotguns are pretty overpowered in this game. Now, an important thing to know is that if you want to go ahead and upgrade your weapons, let's say you can't be bothered to keep playing and collecting scrap, the best thing that I would say to do if you want to be able to get to a higher wave is if you're going to buy them, and this is only if you're going to buy them, let me show you guys how to actually buy them. Don't buy them in the main menu. So you might see a weapon that you like, and you might think, okay, I want this plasma pistol. It costs 20,000. I'm going to go ahead and buy this. The reason you don't want to buy this here is because this is going to cost you 500 Roblox, which is not great. So if you actually want to buy them, just buy the scrap first. So if I go here, I can actually buy the scrap first. You say here, this is going to be 40,000 scrap, and this is actually half price. So I'm not sure how they coded this game, but it is much easier to buy the scrap than buy the weapon than buying the actual weapon. So this is how you want to do it. So you can see here, I then bought 40,000 worth of scrap. And then I'm going to open up the weapon shop. And then if I wanted to buy the plasma pistol, now I could buy the plasma pistol and have money left over. So that is really how you want to, do it because it is super, super, much more useful that way rather than just buying things, super weirdly. And if you want to buy any weapon, it's just very simple as